All right, now we will be talking about addressing the currency mutilation syndrome at this segment of the show. We have Mr. Agri Emmanuel with us. He's an entrepreneur and he's a finance expert. Good to have you on the show today.
Thank you. There's a morning just back there.
Okay. The CBN recently placed a sanction on banks for mutilated currencies that they seem to be having in bulk. We don't understand. It's not clear what the sanction is. We don't clear if they are going to still keep collecting mutilated currencies from us. But before we get into all of CBN sanctions and all, some people don't even understand what we're talking about. So what is currency mutilation and the most sources of mutilated money?
Okay, yes. Currency, first of all, we must understand, is actually a means of exchange. And then for a very long time, the Naira and the Kobo has actually been used by the Nigerian government, to exchange for goods and then for services. So talking about currency mutilation, after dealing with currency just now, it's just, a process whereby a currency, sometimes you see a currency of 500 Naira having different parts, probably because you just want to give it the value it should have, and so you end up, bringing 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 parts of different currencies together just to make it one, and then use it actually instead for goods and services. Also, it goes beyond that also. When the currency becomes composed, talking about, after being, moved around several hands, and all that. Some women or some people, actually, as a matter of fact, those people who actually, living in very rare areas, are actually used to, putting these monies in several areas.
Suffocating it.
And so suffocating the money, and then at the end of the day, you see that this money is no more usable. We have a lot of drugs sometimes, on the street. This money no good, I no collect. This one no good, I no collect. This money, CBN is saying, in fact, for you to even bring it at all, you're not going to pay that amount of money. You're going to pay 400% of that money you are bringing for us to take that money from you. And I think it's going to be a big blow to not just, the bank, but those, persons who actually, the populace, the Nigerian populace are going to feel this very, very hard should all the banks, because I'm actually hearing just now that the banks are already rejecting this money. So it's going to be a big problem because time was not given. I'm not aware of time that was given, probably 100 days or 200 days or 3 months for you to mop up all the cash, in your bags, in your sacks, and what have you. It's becoming a shock just now. It came out April 1st, and that same day, people go to the bank and the banks are saying, no, I'm not going to take this money from you. Take it back to, wherever and all that. So I think, it's going to be a push, front and back. If the banks were accepting it months ago, years ago, and persons even around the people you are dealing with, goods and services are saying, no, I don't want. None of the banks are saying, I don't want. So who is now going to accept those monies is a very big question that the CBN has to actually answer.
The part I laughed when you were saying, when you were explaining how we mutilate currencies, you talked about women, say they like to put it in places, and I'm like,
of course.
Okay.
So what are the economic effect of mutilated notes?
Okay, yes. I think before that, I want to first of all talk about why I think the CBN is bringing up these, sanctions, okay, even though it's coming yes, the cost, of course, before now, use of currency or use of payment of goods and services started from the trade by barter, and then it went into the goods stage that actually stayed for about 500 years, as it were, before we now came to fiat currency. Fiat currency are currencies that are being used or backed up by the government of such a country. And so when the US, 1971, came to say, okay, we're now using dollars, Nigerians said, okay, we're using Naira and Kobo. This Naira we're having just now has a lot of, cost with it. Printing Naira. Do you know that last 2 years, as it were, Nigerians spent over 58 billion to print just about 2.5, billion notes, of Naira. You can imagine what that money could be. Yes, what that money could be used for. If, because by the time the cost of this money is not that high, if you don't actually source for these materials very well to know what you are doing, before you go and print your money in China and come back, you'll be surprised that the man from Adamawa already has his own money. And that's why you see counterfeit. There was a time that counterfeit in circulation were also about 35%.
Certainly.
And now it's down just now because of these values. And the more you try to improve on the quality of the Naira, the amount of money you're going to spend to print those monies become very high. And so that's just the issues. You're actually fighting to say, okay, fine, good. I wouldn't know what the CBN trying to see how they can drive, because 2012 they came up with this policy of cashless policy, as it were. But I'm not sure they're doing enough yet to see that these persons who are majorly underbanked and then unbanked, that is where, are adopting or are being, given things that they need to actually get, the needed education, needed knowledge, and then agents that need to be in these various areas to be able to drive this policy.
Monitor it.
And so because of that, it's going to continue. Because even this policy, I don't know how it's going to work, because of course, we saw what happened during the NIN. If you don't do the new education you need to do, give these guys time, put or plant agents in several areas that can enable these guys do what they need to do in getting themselves onboarded on the NIN platform. We will still have to give dates and then push dates forward. I don't know if they're going to extend or probably use as a warning, because I can tell you for free that a lot of persons will be having. In fact, if you check the billions of claimants that will be in the hands of individuals just now, you cannot just overemphasize it.
So back to the question. Yes. So what is the economic effect?
Economic effect of it is that those money is like it's already a waste, because you can't bring those money to the bank. The bank is saying you're going to pay 400%.
So I carry a bad 1,000 naira. You're telling me I'm going to end up paying you 4,000.
Yes, that's what it means. For 100 naira, you're paying 400 naira. To now take that money. So people are saying we don't want the money. As in, just keep it. So if it's already with you, if you have, if you are somebody doing business just now, then the material money you have with you, you've been planning to say, fine, I'll go to bank today, go to bank tomorrow, or next tomorrow, and then up to just now, you still have that money with you. But I wouldn't know which banks actually will accept that for now, because the rumors in town just now is that these banks are already saying, you didn't hear what CBN said, we are not taking this money away, because if we take the money from you, we cannot take to them, or else we have to pay some amount of money for those money to be received by the CBN.
I mean, don't you think this is unwise for you to just render a mutilated currency unfit for use, or to just drop its value like that? Shouldn't there be a warning like we did in the NIN, so that you tell us within now and the next 10 days, if you have any money that you wrote something on, bring it. If you have any money that is now weak, bring it. If you have money that you use sellotape on, bring it. The sudden stopping of it, do you think it's even wise?
No, that's one problem. I actually can fault with that decision. Because this person, there are persons who travel several hours to get to the bank. I think several means should be adopted to drive this information to these guys. Give at least 100 days or 3 months, as it were. When they hear money, the NIN they may not take it very seriously. But I can tell you for free that this money, the money you have with you don't bring to the bank, because one of the duties of the CBN, for crying out loud, is to mop up cash, from the system. What cash are they going to mop up? Of course, a huge amount of the cash that are going to mop up are these cash that are mutilated or composed, exactly. So why would you now say that this money is already outside with these guys? It's going to remain with them, and we are not going to take. So we advise that CBN, comes down on that, decision and try to give out time at least, even though it will be a month. I can tell you, a month will just be enough for these guys, because nobody wants to now have money with him or her, and then the money becomes valueless. So they will actually be ready to push the money to the bank as quickly as possible, and then so they can probably get the new ones. And the banks, when they get to the bank should be ready to give them, this other very good one. Because we've heard of news and what have you, mutilated money goes to the bank, from bank to CBN, and then they find their way out again to the system. And that's what I think actually has led to the kind of value. For the past many months, when you say means, I'm not saying means that you're going to probably get from intentionally to go get the bank. When are you going to get means from your fellow woman selling ugu or what have you and all that? It's actually, mutilated, almost mutilated, as it were. So time should be given for these monies to be, called back to the system, so that we can actually standardize what we actually have out there.
Well, over the years, the CBN has actually banned spray of Naira notes in parties, but you end up seeing top government officials spraying Naira notes in events. Now, are we not saying that CBN have not really done enough to sanction these people?
Yes, in that aspect, sometimes ago, I think about 2-3 years ago, we heard of news of the Nigerian Police Force, State Command, apprehending some of these guys in the street who actually, have ventured fully ventured fully into the business of going to, I don't know where they get those monies from, and then you see them hang those monies. You drive through the streets of probably Ring Road now, or what have you, see them, shading these monies as their personal business. I used to know that people used to do it as parts, probably some banks, what have you, could just, but now it's now a full business. People go to the bank and acquire these monies, come to the street and shade them on the street, and then expect you to come, buy. What I see just now is that there is actually, most times, a disjunction, a breakdown. A lack of connectivity between, one arm of the government and the other arm. If the CBN has said, okay, fine, good, this thing, we're not going to take it anymore, for you to just probably take our Naira and you now start selling at a premium. If you even see the prices these guys, put on this money, you'll be wondering, what is happening just now. So I think it's now going to be on the hands of the law enforcement to actually do that. When you see somebody shedding money, you don't have to go to CBN to remind you again of what you're supposed to do. Yeah. It's wrong, it is wrong. And that is what I think the Nigerian force will actually, do.
Okay, the last question we have for you before we let you go. The CBN wants to take out all the mutilated currency. If you still have it in your homes, forget about it, so that we can bring the clean notes into our economy. They call it the clean notes policy. Yeah. How long is it going to take before the clean notes become mutilated again? So what then happens? Then that's on the one hand. But what are some of the challenges you think they would encounter in dealing with these clean note policies? I know the last time I went to ATM to withdraw money, I didn't find mint there. Well, although you will see mint in parties. So what challenges do you think the banks, we in general, everyone will encounter in getting this clean note policy and letting it stay?
Okay, yes, I think first of all, the CBN should actually know that they have to do a lot of education. The system we actually operate here. Can you imagine? Since 2012, the CBN has been talking about cashless policy, financial inclusion. We have to first of all now sit down to look at the what do you call it now? Statistics. How many persons are first of all included, number one. Then how many of those persons are now underbanked, first of all. Number two is the fact that the Naira we actually brought on board, they're very clear, is to see how we can reduce the usage, of the paper money, and then try and say I can actually move this thing to digital. Yeah. What have we done? What are we doing to see that we help these guys? If you go to countries like China, Kenya here, let me not even go very far. The taxi drivers and all that are paid, with digital currency. The paper, they just, send it to you. In Ghana here even, they use, their MTN money and all that, to do this payment. But we found out that here in Nigeria, a lot of persons are not still very fine with that.
We just want to see the cash.
I went to a restaurant one day, I wanted to pay with the woman said, please go and get me money. I don't want to, but I cannot take transfer all that. So I think, a lot of, they are doing enough, but I think enough has to be done. That's actually going to be calling for time for us to see how we can educate, the woman selling ugu in the Benin market that, come, madam, this money you're going to be getting once you actually receive your alert, it's actually the same amount of money that you are looking at this paper money. Because as much as we continually, not do that, these monies will be what people will always want to drive at. More money will be needed. It means CBN will need more money to print more Naira notes for these people. And then because of the fact that this digital currency again is not actually what they are looking at, or they have been trained or educated to actually now adopt, monies will remain more in the hands of this person. And once it remains more in the hands of the person, you cannot take it away from them that money will always go mutilated.
Interesting.
And then that becomes issues that may never be solved. Not taken.
All right, now defacing the Naira is a very common practice. Government officials are being known the way Nigerians mutilate and use our Naira in reckless abandon, stepping on it in parties and all of that, and they're looking for ways to put a stop to it. This is a bit abrupt, but let's see how it's going to play out in the long run. And I'm standing for having clean notes. I've never really seen dirty dollars, and I want to have clean Naira notes, and let's also move digital.